All right, I'm going to give you guys a little wonderful tip.
Little wonderful.
Get the watermelon Sour Patches. Eat one. While it's still in your mouth, take a gulp of grape Gatorade. Wonderful.
Okay.
Exactly 3 teaspoons of grape Gatorade with your Sour Patch Kids, and you'll have a wonderful mouthful party.
Yes.
So, Thomas, why don't you introduce us to Dune?
Or however it went.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Daddy! I can't do it. Dune is an adaptation of the epic sci-fi novel by Frank Herbert. And if you've been listening to this podcast for long enough, you know that I'm a massive fan of Dune, and I've been looking forward to this since like 2 years ago when they
When the
announced it.
podcast started.
Yeah, and then like we had like the trailer when the podcast started, and they're like, "No, we're gonna wait a year," and then I was like crying for like a whole year. Yeah, we went to go see this in IMAX. Recommend that you do go see it in IMAX. Cool, watch it at home, whatever. But
Cool, be a loser, but go to IMAX.
But go see it in IMAX because that's how you need to see this movie. It's directed by Denis Villeneuve, which he's directed like Arrival, Sicario, bunch of other movies. I'm not going to list
Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner. Prisoners. I'm naming movies now.
Enemy.
Shut up, Joseph. So this takes place in a universe where the entire no,
that's our universe.
It's our universe technically. The entire universe is run by this material or this substance called the spice, and it's all found on this planet called Arrakis, also called Dune. And
didn't catch that
the emperor of the really
the Baron says it. The Baron says it.
The Baron says it. More you know, right? So the emperor of the Galactic Empire sends the House Atreides, which are main characters named Paul. He sends their house to take over for their rivals, the Harkonnens, that have been ruling Arrakis for the past 80 years. When they get there, they want to make allies with the native people there called the Fremen, and hopefully retake Arrakis in a friendly way, not a conquering way. Little do they know that this entire switch up has been thought up by the Harkonnens and the Emperor to get rid of the Atreides because the Atreides are becoming too popular within the galactic royal houses, and this whole thing was a plot to have them killed. So through quite a bit of means of sabotage and subterfuge and betrayals, they end up getting attacked by the Harkonnens, and basically Paul and his mother are exiled into the desert to hopefully survive, and they find the Fremen there, and that's where the movie ends. So that's the summary of Dune, because this movie was pretty long, also kind of complicated, and I really want to go into the eccentricities and stuff of everything that I love about Dune, but I have to be careful, otherwise this turns into just a Dune lore podcast. Things that I liked about this movie: the cinematography in this movie was freaking awesome. Also, the production design of this movie was just chef's kiss, spot on, so cool looking. The casting was pretty good, I thought. Gurney Halleck, which is who Josh Brolin plays, is my favorite character in the books. I thought he did a great job in this movie because he got the stoicism of Gurney Halleck down, but he also got the little softer side because he's actually a religious guy. He's a poet and he's a musician. And he didn't play the balisette though, and I really wanted him to play it. I really wanted him to play that lute, but he never did.
They cut that scene.
They cut that scene in the original too, because Patrick Stewart plays it, and they cut it. It's like they cut this one too. I'm like, when will I get the balisette? All right. Zendaya plays Chani. She's one of the Fremen warriors. She was all right. Didn't really care for her that. I don't like Chani though in the books anyway. But she also wasn't in this very much because this also is only the first like half of the first Dune book, and it ends with Paul going into the desert with the with the Fremen, and that's that's where it ends.
I saw that she was in this movie for 7 minutes.
7 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
It felt
That
like
makes
longer though.
I did. I think because of flashbacks, I don't know if they count those. I guess they
Yeah.
probably do.
They
Yeah,
have
the
to count
dreams.
those, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the
it's,
visions.
Yeah, whatever. Or
Yeah.
visions, yeah, whatever.
But I thought this did a pretty good job of adapting the book. There are a few things I was like, that's not exactly right. But I know Denis Villeneuve is like a massive fan of the Dune books, so I know he was trying to get this as right as he could. I didn't like the woman that plays Kynes. I didn't think she was
Really,
that
I
great.
liked her. I thought
Really?
her character was pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't know.
I like
Maybe-
Kynes, but I didn't like her as Kynes.
Yeah. I don't know. She just seemed kind of like not interested at all, like the whole movie. So I don't know.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Who's that?
See,
The planet scientist, the one that was
She's-
trying to save
The
them.
mediator one that was going with that.
yeah, she's like in charge of the
Just shot in the back.
change.
Oh, yeah, she was fine.
Jesus. I like the action scenes in this because they really use like the personal shields. I thought it looked really cool when they did it.
Mhm.
And even though
Better in the first one.
I love the first ones
Really?
'cause-
The polygon thing.
Yes. Awesome. I love
That's how
those.
they like change color if you got hit.
Mhm. Well, I even liked the only thing I didn't like was I thought I didn't like them. The Sardaukar are awesome in this, but they needed. I didn't like their helmets; they looked kind of odd. But I did how I did like how they had like the grav things and like floated down because that's a big part of like Baron Harkonnen is he's so fat that he can't even move.
Yeah, that was a cool scene when they're just like floating down on the Fremen base,
Yeah.
but they don't like make noise when they do it.
But I don't know, like it's hard for me to like to describe everything because there's so much in this movie that I want to talk about. But overall, I really liked the presentation of it. I really liked the acting in it. Oscar Isaacs was great in this movie as Duke Leto. He was fantastic. Man, Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron, he was terrifying.
He does a really good job.
Like that was so good.
Did you say that he wanted more nude scenes? Don't know why, but he just put out that he wanted him to be more nude. I guess because he
apparently
looked cool in it, but
Yeah, I think
Well,
that he said
apparently
it's
it's 'cause he
'cause
likes it.
He was more intimidating if he was nude more often.
That
makes
particular guy is so gross, like the boils and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
This
but that
one
was like a David
cool.
Lynch thing.
Yeah, this one was cool. The other guy was gross.
But yeah, this movie was the like. I wasn't a huge fan of the sandworms, just like the look of them. I like the mouth on like the old ones, so they look cooler. But man, this was just a good scene, or this was just a good movie. Sorry, and the way that Duncan Idaho goes out was pretty cool because like when he like survives, it's like, oh, that's a change, and then he dies. I'm like, oh, thank God, 'cause that's a big part of it.
he's got to go save the siege, Thomas.
Anyway, I'm gonna toss this to Jared because I know he's read the books too, or at least a few of the books. And he's a huge fan of David Lynch as well, and he's seen the old movie too. So, what do you think, Jared?
I really like this movie. I thought it was pretty epic. Like Thomas said, the visuals are really great. The only thing with me is that this is kind of why I don't read books before a movie, is because the whole time, because nothing surprises me because I've already read it all, so there's nothing to like look forward to, I guess. Or I mean, you could look forward to it being adapted, but nothing surprises you. So, for me, it was just kind of going scene by scene. So I kind of felt the time during this movie, but like you were saying, the characters, the visuals are great. The thing, a thing I didn't like was the personal shields, how they like changed colors when they got hit. I know, like visually for the movie and like everything, it's to convey what's happening, but it just looks like laser tag or something to me. Like you're getting like a fatal hit when you get red. If you miss, you got blue. I don't know. But I understand why you would do it that way. I thought one of my favorite scenes was like when the Harkonnens were invading Arrakis and like there was the shields and stuff over the city and they were just like the bombs were getting through and like they're exploding. It just looked great. And then there was like that scatter missile at the end. It just looked really cool. It was a really cool scene. I thought my favorite character, or the best like adaptation to me, was Oscar Isaac as Leto. I thought he was great in this. I like the look of the worms. I know you're never gonna get a perfect one like in your head from reading the books, but I like the look of it. Like how they have like their teeth are almost like whale bristles, kind of like just like a brush almost looking thing.
And it makes the knives more like you can
Yeah.
tell that they
Yeah.
made the knives out of
Yeah.
those.
The
Yeah.
Chris Knights, yeah.
Did
I annoy you like every like 5 seconds when like something would happen? I was like, oh,
Nah, I was doing the same thing in my head. There's just like, again, with like reading books before you watch the movie, there's just like things that kind of like annoyed me with characters and like the decisions of like what the actor wanted to do for the character, because of course it's not what you want in your head. But no, this is a really good movie. Look forward to more of it. Trying to think if there's anything else that I really enjoyed, that I wanted to talk about before I handed it off. Oh, I love this isn't in the book, and I love the inclusion of that spider thing, that pet that the Harkonnens had,
I think it's weird.
no.
and it
I
had
think-
like
No.
human hands, and it would just
No.
it's cool.
I think Dennis Villeneuve has a thing about spiders.
Yeah.
No.
But no, I really enjoyed this. I'm glad I saw it, and I'm glad it finally came out. And I do like the Lynch one too. So I'm not one of those guys who's like that was terrible, but I like it. I will hand it off to Michael.
Ready? I'll probably be the most negative on this movie. I still like this movie. I think it's a really good movie, but there's a lot that I didn't, and it could have been me watching it. I don't know, but there's a lot that I wasn't invested in. Like I wasn't invested in this movie until him and his mom escaped. Like I didn't care about anyone. I liked all their characters. I thought their characters were really great, but a lot of the scenes, I'm like, why? Like that scene where they attack the Furman base, or whatever, and Josh Brolin's going out to head the charge. And I was like, I'm watching this and I don't care. I don't know why. Like, there's. I think it's because there's a lot of this movie. Like I said to them, we went to eat afterwards, and I said that I feel like a lot of this movie, and Thomas was explaining this is actually how the book very, very much is, and I was like, it feels like it's just all could have been flashbacks. Like it could have started with him and his mom on the run, and like you learn about these characters as flashbacks, because the movie skips so much. Like you start in a moment in a time, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna go to this, and then he's leaving. Oh, but then we're going to where we're meeting him again. And Thomas was explaining, he was like, that's actually not that long as it makes it seem in the movie, but it's still like just these chunks of little time. Like there's not any like growth I felt with these. That's a way to put it. I didn't feel any growth with any characters before anyone died. Because spoilers, a lot of people died. Like most people you see in the beginning, like aren't going to be in the next one. And it's just something I'm like, I don't care what's happening here. This felt like just a lot. Yeah, Thomas, yeah. But
the thing this movie does, this movie is very like the Cliff Notes version of Dune.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you wish you could just get more, but it'd be like 50 hours. But this movie does the worst is like connections between characters. Like I felt no connections amongst any
Really?
of them really.
I thought the
Not like,
connection between the dad and Paul
That's
was
the
pretty
only.
good.
That's the only one that I thought
and
was
it's
really
good
good.
in the movie, but in the book it's like even 10 times more than that, and that's like the
Interesting.
whole
Yeah.
like from this to the book, like 10 times more of like character growth between characters. Like Yui, me and Thomas were like very bummed out because in the book he's
Oh.
like a family friend of the Duke. Like they're so close,
really?
and then
Yeah,
to be betrayed by them.
Oh yeah, that one
I
didn't go over
I
very
I
good.
forgot about the whole like subplot about Thufir Howard like suspecting Jessica about being the spy.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
huge part of that first half was like him basically being like this roadblock to Jessica trying to find out stuff because he suspects her. And so he's like cutting her off at like every point that he can get because he doesn't think or he thinks that she's a spy. And they didn't have any of that in this one, which I was like, oh my god.
I will say because
Um,
Alex and I haven't read the books, and someone who hasn't read the books, I felt like they did do a good job because I got that from this. Like whenever after he betrays them, and then he tried and like guides them, like this is what you understand why he did it, and he didn't want to, but he's still doing the wrong thing. But he's still you can understand there's a history there. Like I got that from watching this movie that hey, these guys are actually tight, and he's trying to help them out of a bad situation that he put them in out of guilt, but he's still doing a bad thing, but he's still trying to save his lady friend. But anyway, but there's also a lot of this movie that I didn't like visually like. I was actually kind of surprised you guys liked this visually so much. I feel like it was well shot and everything, but a lot of like the only ships I liked were the ones that went brrrr. Like everything
The
else.
Dragonfly one?
Yeah, everything else
the Ornithopters.
everything else I thought looked really bland and boring. Like I was like,
I would say
except
like
for the worm ship. The worm ship was cool.
Yeah, that was what I
That
was
was
gonna
cool.
say. That one was cool. Yeah, I get that a little bit. Especially like the base on Arrakis, where they live. It was
Yeah.
that looked kind of bland and like cheap.
There's just a lot of just like flat blanked nothingness, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it looks like
We
very
actually
very base
Okay.
sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we actually talked about that after we went to go eat. Me and Jared were talking. I was like, yeah, there's this whole like hierarchy and society inside of Arrakis that they didn't even touch on
Yeah.
like at all. Like there's like a nobility class within there, and there's like the water merchants and like the actual like spice merchants in there, but you didn't get anything of that.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
only
when
part
you-
you really get is when he's watering the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like
Space politics, damn it.
there's just a lot of things like that bother me. And one thing I thought would have been really, really cool because apart from the trailers, you don't really. I wish you hadn't seen any of the desert planet or anything or what Arrakis or whatever it's called. Because like it's such they do so well showing like all the other places of being drab and dull and gray and everything. I feel like it would have been a good like transition if it hit like. It would have been more impactful because they kept talking about this is just a sand planet. Like there's nothing out there. There's gonna be a struggle. You have to like gotta wear these special outfits and these special clothes. They made it seem like such a big deal. I feel like a visual representation of that would have been so much better if they hadn't shown it until they get there. Then it really hits you because they're just in gray, watery, Seattle looking place, and then they go to this like bright. I feel like it would have been. I just wasn't affected by it whenever we got to there, and I was like, I expected to have more of a whoa factor. But and the only other thing, like I said, I did like this movie. I liked it a lot. I feel like the characters are great, but I like the main characters, not the ones that didn't impact me very much. But the other thing I didn't like was like I'll use the main fight scene as the thing, but a lot of the choreography I didn't like at all. But like the last fight scene, I felt like was just super poorly shot. It's like all over the shoulder. This weird, you can't tell between him and the guy that challenges him for the alpha male. Whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just all so, like I told them after I was like, we needed the wide shot of this like low camera shot where you see the plane of the ground and then two guys and everyone on the hill in the background. There was like that's such an easy good shot to do, and I'm like, where was it? There was no like before the fight starts, they're standing off side by side like a samurai movie about to come at each other. That shot would have set the scene so well for a more of an epic tone, but it's just all these over the shoulder like third person gaming shots that you're dealing with, and I don't.
It's a very weird scene now that you mention it. It's like mid range where like I would have liked it even like the opposite if it was like super close up.
Oh,
because this guy's like fighting, and she mentions that he's never killed a man.
Yeah.
So if they could have got across like the physicality of this fight by like getting up close and like real like bloody or like just like sweaty and stuff like that, like what a real fight would have been like. I think even that would have been cooler than the mid shot that they used, like you were saying.
But yeah, it was just and also just the choreography because like even we took our friend Ari to go see it and he was like, I didn't get how, or was it Alex that asked? So one of them said they didn't get how the guy died because Timothy
Does he,
Chalamet
like,
tips
stab
him
him in
over
the
and
back?
stabs him in the back. Yeah, but he
It was
didn't, like,
Ari. It was Ari. It wasn't
yeah.
me. And for the love of God, please learn how to say choreo. You're messing me up. Choreography. You always say choreography.
Choreography, whatever it is. I've heard both ways.
Just on this podcast.
From me.
But this dog will not stop playing with me. I gotta shut my door. Now she's gonna whine. But yeah, there's just moments in the scene that I felt like they could have amped up and made bigger like that. And then like the scene, like I wish that the whole body armor was just isolated lighting up rather than the whole thing lighting up because I felt like especially another huge complaint I had is whenever they have the war of like them attacking everything. It was she's up there now. It was a big time Tenet effect. Like you could there were distinguishing factors between two people, but it just kind of looked like a big mush of gray fighting each other. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on here. Like, who are you and who are you? And it's just a bunch of blobs. Like, it was just hard to follow, in my opinion, and just stuff like that. And also the fact that I didn't really care about what was going on at that point. It was just like, I felt like these were just beats of what you needed to know for leading up. And that's what this movie is, really. It's a big lead up movie. Like, hey, you got to learn where we are. Like, it's Game of Thrones season 1 in 3 hours, but I don't know. It was cool. I really, really liked, like, Timothy Chalamet. I think really, really drew me into this movie, especially the performance and like just his character. I like his character a lot and just what they do. And like you guys brought up, like the idea of like because that's whenever I started really, really growing interest was whenever they brought in the fact of, hey, this is a Game of Thrones thing. We're going to destroy this house. Like these houses are plotting with the King Boy to destroy it. Like that's such a cool, just weird political thing that I enjoy. But yeah,
Where do you think George R. R. Martin got that?
Yeah, 100% probably.
Yeah.
But and then going with Timothy Chalamet's character, them trying to make him a messiah thing, like building up this breeding for the savior of all of the people, whatever, and then like the mom kind of interfering. I like those stories. I'm really, really interested in. I feel like that's hopefully, I have no idea, like I said, where the rest of this goes, but I wanted the second story to really explore that more with just more isolate on the characters, because I feel like Game of Thrones can focus on all these houses and people because it's a show with 10 episodes. You get 10 hours and 10 hours plus across the season, whenever this is 3 hours for half of one story book thing. But what, Thomas?
So something you mentioned that they do kind of like play into it a bit. They mention it, and it's in some of the dialogue if you like pay attention. Is about the Kwisatz Haderach, about it being a prophesied like thing, but the thing is the prophecy is actually being subverted by the Bene Gesserits as like a tool for political power, because the Bene Gesserits are purely a political entity. Like that's who they are, is like the shadow government basically. And that they've curated this Messiah prophecy to be enacted when they think the time is right, when they have the right person to do. And so when Paul goes into that Fremen siege, or siege, sorry, and he starts mentioning the Kwisatz Haderach, and his mom's like, "Be careful, because this is where this starts." I like that scene because that's them planning politically along that lines, and so Jared kind of gets this because he saw the David Lynch one, is that they don't really do that in the David Lynch one. He's just like the Messiah. That's just how he is. But in the books and stuff, he's not so much the Messiah. He's just he turns himself into the Messiah because these people are primed to believe this. Like hundreds and hundreds of years of conditioning through like political and religious means have primed them to accept the Messiah, and he decides to do it. And I like that they had that conversation in there, even between Jessica and the Bene Gesserit, mother. And they have the floating lights, by the way. I love that because like in the books are so vague on technology because Frank Herbert's like focus wasn't on technology, it was characters. And he just passively mentions like something like a floating light, doesn't give any kind of descriptions of what it is. of any kind of dimensions, what it looks like, what it's supposed to be doing besides like, it's just a floating light. And they have just a floating light. I loved that. But yeah,
Yeah, whenever
there's
I
so
was
much
like,
there's so much I love about this movie that they got right. And there's just so much I was like, please just I wish this was a mini series. Or a full blown
I
series
really
like
wish
Game
this
of
was an HBO
Thrones.
series, honestly, or an Amazon series or
Like,
something.
there's just
Just
so
give it more
much
time
to
to
work with.
breathe, because like all these ideas and aspects, I'm really excited to see where it goes from it. But I want them to have time and the ability to really flesh it all out properly. But so hopefully we'll see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie was just like, I'm interested, but I'm not diehard about this one. But and that wheel looks like a floating Rocket League wheel, by the way. That light ball. I was like, anyway, I'm gonna throw it to Joseph because I don't know. Have you read the books, Joseph?
The first I haven't read like the sequels or anything,
Okay,
and
'cause-
then I've seen the Dune or the Lynch one.
Yeah, and then you watched this one twice, right?
Yeah, I just watched it today, and then I saw it in IMAX. Definitely better in IMAX, I thought. On HBO, it looked kind of more like a show than a movie.
Except our IMAX, so I do have some complaints about
Yeah,
our
there was
IMAX.
some weird with the blacks were off on our IMAX for some reason.
It was
I don't
like
know what was going on.
super muted. It was
Yeah.
like
Weird.
It was really
what
weird.
the hell's going on? It's like I've seen like an IMAX like movie, and like this is like not the greatest quality.
It was mainly just the scene with the worm at night.
I
That
think
was
the fight scene
that-
was Josh Brolin.
The
was
fight
worst.
scenes were
The night one, whenever the
that's the main
attack happened,
scene.
I was like, so HBO
That
online.
scene that Alex was talking about with the worm at night, that did kind of bother me a little because in the trailer it looks like it happens during the day. I don't know if I'm just remembering that wrong because you see the worm a lot clearer in the trailer than you do in the night one during the movie, and so that scene did kind of bother me because this is a big reveal about the worm and it's like looking at Paul and you get it just gets kind of muddled by the darkness of that scene. So yeah, so I love this movie. I thought it was awesome. The whole atmosphere that it sets with especially the music in it, it's so like otherworldly. What Hans Zimmer does with the music, but it's still based on kind of like Middle Eastern stuffs too. So and that fits in with like Dune's what Herbert did with the novel. It's a very Middle Eastern based in the philosophy and everything like that. So I thought what Villeneuve's past movies or what he always does well is build tension. And I think this movie maybe not has as much tension as his other films, but it definitely you feel something like a dread or a doom over this house during the whole film. Especially when it was scenes with like the Duke and stuff like that, you feel like he's desperate, like he knows something wrong going to happen, and that he's trying to prepare Paul for leadership and to take over his leadership of the house because he kind of he knows something's going wrong, and so like when he's talking to Jessica, he's like, make sure you protect him, you know, like not just you, but like your whole organization that you belong to. So I thought that was really cool. So this movie is just like ramping up, and by the time I get to the end, I'm like, dang, I don't want this to end because I knew it was coming because I knew it was based on the first part of the book, and so you know it's going to kind of end in the desert, and I'm just super excited for the next one because like this one, what I liked about this one is super streamlined. Like what Thomas was saying, they focus mainly on Paul and his journey instead of like the other ones, like the book and Lynch. They do give you a lot of the dynamics and politics that are going on in the universe. Like this one doesn't even have the Emperor in it, which I thought was really cool because I'm really excited to see what the Emperor looks like in the next movie. So I like how they hold back stuff for the future movie. So I think, see, I'm opposite because I know you guys tend to like series, like TV series, more than I do. I'm more of a movie guy, and I like when you hold back stuff and information, and like you hint at bigger stuff going on, but you don't exactly see it. So that's that's why I think I really love this movie, because it was just super streamlined. They didn't go into all the stuff that they could have, like they don't even mention Mentats or all the other Benny. They have like different houses and stuff like that. The space navigators you don't really see. There's like representatives of them, but you don't really see an actual space navigator in this movie.
I
So
don't think you see them until like the third book or something like that.
Yeah.
Like an actual one.
And then but in the Lynch one, you get to see him in the tank and
Right off the
everything.
bat.
Yeah,
Like the first character.
yeah. But yeah, so I like that they held stuff back, but maybe that's just me because I know more of the lore. So definitely, like, people who haven't like seen the Lynch one or the books, don't know anything about the books, would be kind of confused. But it doesn't sound like Michael was confused. He like wanted more, so I think that's a good thing. And then, like I was saying, the music's super awesome. The visuals, except for that stuff on Arrakis, like we already talked about. That ship, the big gold ships, those were really cool. I think the technology looked really good. Like the Dragonfly ships that were real cool. Yeah, I mean, you guys touched on a lot of it. I'm getting like feedback on someone.
The music was good, except for that there's always one yell that's a little too much.
Yeah.
It just got a little annoying. Like the first time you hear it is cool, but then they kept using it, and I was like, okay, stop, please.
I just like how they built these alien worlds. Like, Kaladin looked really cool. It was just a big water planet.
Gady Prime, man. Like that
Yeah.
was straight out of H.R. Giger's like drawings, which I was like, that made me so happy to see the Harkonnen base like that. I was like, oh yes.
And then that part with the Duke and like the oil bath, it just like kind of reminded me of Beyond the Black Rainbow. It was
Yeah.
like kind of that creepiness going on in there. And like the paleness of the other like the people attending him and stuff like that. What else? And then when they go to the planet where the Emperor's army is, and then
Silius Secundus.
yeah, and they have like that priest doing that weird like chant thing. I thought that was really cool. And they have like these guys hanging up upside down, bleeding them and stuff like that. So I really like the world building they did.
So apparently the Sardaukar chant, that is like a workout thing now. Like people work out to that because it like pumps like bodybuilders up.
That's crazy. And then I like how the Atreides, they were portrayed in this one. They're kind of Spanish because they have bullfighting. And, I love the bagpipes they play when they like exit the ship. And I thought that was awesome.
That was so weird, though. Like, there's Scottish people in space. Like,
because this does take place in our universe. Like, there was an Earth, and like the Catholic Church is still around. It's like the Orange Catholic Church
Orange
now.
Catholic Bible, yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So there's like a little bit of our world in this universe. The one thing I was gonna say is like computers are like banned. You're not allowed to have like computers or robots in this universe. But it definitely looks like he's like learning his lessons from a computer. I know it's like I think they just call it films or something like that. But that's
textbook.
Yeah, that's definitely a computer. And then like the Hunter Seeker, that's a droid. I'm sorry, that's something out of Star Wars.
You just can't have AI, right?
What?
You just can't have AIs, right?
Yeah, you can't have AI.
You can't have machines patterned on humans or something like that.
Yeah.
It can't be.
Some say like calculators too are like forbidden.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I go that far. But that's why like Thufier, when he asked him how much did it cost to come here, and he like does that cool calculating look. Which I think that was a cool representation of how they like think. Because in the book, it's the Mentats is because they're living computers. That was a cool way for them to show how they were processing data.
Yeah. So you gotta have human computers in this world. Like you gotta do all your space. When you're traveling space, it's gotta all run through these weird guys and holding vats because they got to think. But the casting was great. I thought Paul Timothy Chalamet, his character was. I think he did really good job. I'm not a big fan of like the Kyle MacLachlan version of Paul. He's just kind of like a snooty preppy guy. I
Man
think,
who looks both 12 and 40 at the same time.
yeah. This Paul, he looks super young, and he's just like he has that kind of naiveness to him, but he also like wants to do something in the world, and I thought that came across really cool. And his visions were cool in this one. I watched a video that mentioned that I didn't catch the first time, but like the guy he fights at the end, he actually had a vision of him being friends with
That's
him.
what we were talking about.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, so he sees the future, but it's not like clear. It's like he sees different routes of the future.
That's what I was talking about with Ari, because Ari was asking me after. He was like, what did you get with all that stuff? Because I was like, I kind of imagined, because he kept showing like the voice before he fought him was like to kill someone and just to give up your own, or like he's basically taking your own life. Like you're killing yourself when you kill someone. And it was kind of like they like, to me, the visions, because a lot of it was like, she gives him the knife. So it was like the vision of her killing him was him giving the knife to kill himself. Is kind of, I don't know if that leads more to the books. I have no idea. This is just me going off of those visions. And then whenever it was like with him, it was like, because the look he gives to him whenever he kills him, he looks down and like the guy is dying and Timothy Chalamet goes down. He's like, it's like they kind of have that connection. So it's kind of like the vision saying like, hey, they have this connection that they're not going to be able to break, like this unbroken thing of like they're bonded there. And there was another one of him. I forget what the other vision was, but that's kind of where I got that, because we thought that we were like, that was him, right? But we never could confirm it.
Yeah, I was confused too if that was him, because I was watching, and then I watched this video where the guy says, yeah, that's the character. And he's having a vision of what they could have been, and like he would have taught them the ways of the desert and stuff like that. So I thought that was like really cool how they did that. The only character I didn't really, I think got like underserved was Dave Bautista's character, because you don't really see him fight or
really
anything. Yeah, he just kind of like whines to the Duke a couple times and like chops the guy's head off. But so I think he'll definitely get a bigger part in the second one. But he didn't get too much to do on this one.
Like me and Joey were talking, like they don't even have Fade in this one.
Yeah,
I thought that was weird, because like
so maybe
in like the first scene where you meet the Baron, Fade's there too with Piter and Raban. So I don't know why they didn't have Fade. So
not
So
even
may-
much about Piter either. So like all the
No.
Harkonnens
Yeah.
got kind
No,
of
his pizza.
shelved.
axed off.
So maybe in the second one, a little bit more into them, like since they rule the planet now, maybe they'll bring some more of the guys over. But yeah, so I'm going too long, but I like this movie. It was one of my favorite movies of the year. So I'll let Alex talk.
I'm gonna start off with a little chuckle I had in the theater whenever he's like, he's like, how much is it gonna cost or whatever? And I just wanted Josh Brolin to be like, everything. But so I was chuckling to myself that in theater. This movie, I don't know. Michael and I are probably very similar, but this is not like Toy Story 3 back in the day, or like Edward Scissorhands nowadays, where I'm resistant against people telling me that those are good movies. As you know, Toy Story 3 I'm good with now, but this movie I'm totally open. You guys just totally jump in. I am totally 50-50 with this movie. I think I definitely have a lot of problems with it, but like I described this movie as completely boring throughout the entire thing. But I didn't care. Like it's almost like contradictory. Like I was bored, but I was like, this is all interesting. But this movie's so I don't even know what we're doing in most of this movie. Like I have no idea what's happening. Like, I mean, I know that they're going there on that political thing because they've been sent to like
New management in town.
Yeah, new management to get the spice and then to bounce and to get along with these people, but it seems like they've been set up somehow, and I don't know. I don't understand this movie. But let me go with the least important things about like more production stuff that bothered me. One, I guess this is more writing, but one thing that I couldn't believe that in 2021, even though this movie was supposed to come out last year, we were still doing this. Where they have that first fight scene with Josh Brolin and Paul. And he's like, and oh god, and like so there, Paul does a thing, which it's not totally clear what he's doing to me, who I don't know anything about Dune whatsoever. Like, he does a thing where he slaps a knife against his hand, and it's like blocking it. It's like, oh, this is good, and then he just slowly moves it in, and then it turns red, and it's like, I don't really know what that means, but maybe contextually, if I'll understand. But then they have to have the stupid thing that movies do, where Josh Brolin is like Timothy Chalamet, the swinging, and then Timothy Chalamet does something like that, where he like moves it close and it's slowly, and it gets to him, and then he's like, Josh Brolin says a dumb thing where it's like, you moved it in close to my armor so that it would get through or whatever. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe we're still doing this in movies. Oh, it's terrible.
It's very much
set up the rules.
But there's so many better ways.
There are way better ways to do that.
Better ways to do this. Go ahead, Thomas.
That's right from the book.
Right from the book. Well,
Thomas, you said this when we went to eat afterwards. I don't care if it's from the book. If it's from the book, it's bad.
Also,
that's a bad part of the book.
In the book, you have no visualization to teach through seeing.
That's true.
Like a movie can show you without telling you, and this is so force feeding. It's like when a video game is like it's hand holding in video game. It's like this is how you stab someone. Like press square to hold. Like I don't know. It's so.
I hate those games.
It's so much. I remember in that scene, I was like, Alex gonna hate this so much. When he said that, I was like, because it's just like, aha, you have done this to do this. Well done. Did you get that crowd? It's like
it just totally takes you out of it. It's like
it does.
and I don't think that
just because you're switching the mediums.
Yeah. Just because it comes from a book, I don't think that's a good excuse. Because like even Harry Potter 2 at the end, spoilers. Whenever Dobby gets set free, I think it's way better in the movie than in the book. Like way better.
Yeah.
So I think I just don't think that that's a good excuse. Just because it comes from the book, just because it's faithful, doesn't mean it's good. It's stupid. All right, moving on. The only thing that Jared touched on is that every time either a character is introduced or something even remotely notable happens, it's like, all right, Timothy Chalamet. And it shows Josh Brolin, and then it's like the girl that you guys were talking about. She gets stabbed behind, and then we know she's hurt. We know she's killed. You would think they would do it then, but they wait to have her body pushed over and to see the person, and it's like, I'm like, why is this one sound clip happen every time? Because I'm with Jared. I'm like, that sounded so cool at times, and then they just did. Over and over and over. I was like, God, not everything.
It reminded me of Wonder Woman when they just kept doing
I just like that's such a cool sound that you save that for moments that are awesome, and you don't save that for every time a cast member is introduced. Yeah. That was
I want that sound to appear every time I walk into a room. So screw you guys.
Hey, that would be cool. I'd be down for that. As long as it's
because you get annoyed with it the second time I walk out of the room to go to the bathroom.
I would. I'd be like, just stay in the damn room, Thomas.
I'd be fine with it because at least it's just when you walk into the room. If Jared walks in the room and it happens, then I'm annoyed. But because it's just anyway. I'm trying to think of any other things. I think that the rest that was the only production stuff. I think. Oh, and I don't really agree with Michael. I think that most of the movie looks great. I think that the designs of the ships all looked awesome. I think this movie is visually absolutely stunning. The only thing that looked terrible is what Michael pointed out in the trailer is that when he has that Mark Ruffalo thing where he's like in the suit
in the
and
future.
I still don't get that.
It looks so bad.
It does look bad.
Get that.
He's like
I thought that looked cool.
He's like clearly not in the suit. Clearly.
It's poorly adapted to his environment. It looks like he's in a dark space suit in space, but he's like, I don't know. It looks super weird.
But you know how Michael was saying that during the fight scenes in this one, it looked like gray globs fighting each other. I thought the trailer kind of ruined it because that part when they're in that armor, the Freeman armor, looks so much cooler than any of the armor we see in this one.
Yeah.
So while we're going on the fight scenes, I did like that they addressed the weirding way, which I thought was quite good because in the David Lynch, it's ray guns. I don't know why it's ray guns.
Naturally.
It's not even ray guns. It's like sound ray guns. It's like, and that's the.
I'm so sorry, Alex. I know you're trying to get through
No,
your
you do it.
opinions. The scene, that adorable man in the Thropter, in the book, he's like he can't hear,
Oh.
and he was like, doing that.
No.
Hey,
It was
is anyone
adorable.
talking? Does anyone say anything back there? No offense to deaf.
Speaking
people.
about adorable, that one guy with the parasol when they're walking through a wreck.
Oh, goofier. That was so weird. I'm like, what?
That was funny because he's like, they gave us like no budget for equipment or whatever, and then like, there's a tiny little umbrella. Okay, so to go on to just kind of my thoughts of like the story, it's like I think I left this movie just feeling. Our friend, some of our other friends, they saw it as well, and they had already heard our opinions, and they were like, "You guys are nuts! Like this movie's awesome." And again, we weren't like straight up negative about it. I think Michael and I really want to like this movie, but we don't fully get it, I guess, or I don't know. But like they were talking about it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna rewatch it, and I really meant to do it before this podcast, and somehow I ran out of time. Because it's on HBO again, so I can easily watch it again. But
Yeah.
I totally feel like this is a movie I could flip around on to really liking. I just need to go in with expecting something because they went in expecting part one. This is the beginning of the story, and I went expecting like more, I guess. But like I feel like I didn't connect to almost any characters, and I know that Jerry has talked about how that's way deeper in the book, sure. But in the movie, like I think the most character I liked was actually his mom. I thought she was I'm not saying she was a good person. I'm saying that she was most interesting.
Mhm.
And then Oscar Isaac, I like probably second most, and then Paul. Even though I'm not totally. This movie felt like, usually the protagonist in any story is supposed to be making the actions, making choices, making things happen. Whereas this movie kind of just felt like it was happening to Paul to me. And sure, it is kind of the first arc, the first act. And sure, that's fair. But I feel like he was just kind of like going along with things and it was just happening.
Which is kind of weird because in the book he's a lot more like, oh, he's way smarter than a child. He's a smart man or whatever.
Yeah.
The whole book is like
Oh,
that.
way
He's like he
more.
knows way more than he is.
This one they try because they're like, oh, he knows our ways without even being here.
Oh yeah, I definitely got what you're saying, Jared, from the movie. I think like he definitely seems kind of exceptional, but it seems like he could just be that way just because.
No, but he was also like smart. Like he wasn't naive or anything like that.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He figures out like the Bene Gesserit stuff like that as soon as he like meets.
Like
them.
he's already plotting out like what he's gonna do as Duke at his age and like how he's gonna change Arrakis.
Yeah, I did not get that from the movie.
In
at
this
all.
one, he's more hesitant. Like he's like, maybe I don't want to be the Duke and stuff.
But I love one of the absolute, just such awesome things about this and Star Wars is that I love like the religious aspect of when everything's so advanced and everything. I love the religious, like them looking for a Messiah to save them out of this kind of stuff, and like how they. But then I love how it's kind of like how I talked in the Matrix, where I wish at the end of the Matrix that Neo wasn't the one.
Mhm.
That's what I love about what I think Jared was saying about how that he kind of just chooses to be the Messiah, even though what I understood what you were saying is that he's not really. He just chooses it because these people believe he is.
Almost like
They
his mom
manipulate
chose
the
it.
people from prophecies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the cool lines was when Jessica's talking to her like mother superior, and when she says like, "We have other candidates, lined up for if he fails."
Yeah,
because she wasn't supposed to have him, but she was like, I'm gonna kind of take it in my own hands and have a boy.
Yeah. That's why I think
And they really get into that later on.
Yeah. That's why I really like this more than like that aspect of the Matrix where it's like I just whatever. He's the one. Like, what does that mean? Like in this, it's like, no, this is all manipulation. And I love that. Like that's so but it's like, is there some truth to it? It's kind of like whenever she says, like, oh, he will know your ways without having been born with you or whatever.
He put his
I was
socks
like,
on
that
her
line
head.
was so cool. But I also love Paul's line when he says, like, he's talking to his mom and she's like, oh yeah, no, they believe that you're whatever. Maybe she says something like that. You believe you're the Messiah, and he says they only believe it because they were told to. Like I was
Yeah.
like, that line was so cool. I love the religious aspects of all this. But yeah, as far as like just characters, I just don't feel like I understand people's motivations. Like I don't know. I didn't connect to a lot of characters, but I'm gonna watch again, and I'm gonna keep all this in mind. Uh, but just because it's on my mind, I want to jump to a couple scenes that like, oh my gosh, I think you guys said his name was the Baron. Um, I'm not gonna remember any names in this movie because they're all weird, and then there's Paul. But
What's
like,
funny though is like the David Lynch one, they pronounce stuff a lot different than this one. Like in that Lynch one, they're Harkonnens, and then on this one, they're the Harkonnens.
Harkonnens.
Yeah.
the emphasis is on the different part.
I have heard it both ways though, like from multiple people though.
Choreography.
Yeah, I was just gonna say choreography. But man, he was by far the coolest character in this whole movie. Well, one, the actor, that guy Skarsgård, or whatever, has like the coolest voice in the world. And then, oh my gosh, like every scene of him was so awesome. My favorite scene in the whole movie is the scene where Oscar Isaac is across the table from him, and then he spits out the poison or whatever. And then, oh my gosh, that scene's so cool. And like he floats weird. I'm like, what is up with this dude? He's so cool. And then like I was telling them that like how that whenever he spits out the poison and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I got us. And then they come back to that scene and they're like, oh man, you would think this giant guy would be dead on the floor somewhere. Where is he? And he's just like hiding out on the ceiling like a vampire, just hiding away to not get poisoned. Like I was like, this is so cool. And then he bathes in oil to heal himself. I'm like, what is this guy?
I love when he breached like a whale.
Yeah. God, he was such a cool character. Like I just want the movie to be about him. Jumping on to other characters, like I think that I didn't really care about almost any other characters. Like the Jason Momoa character, I was like, yeah, you're fine. Oh, I do like Josh Brolin. That's a lie. I do like his character a lot.
I like Javier Bardem.
Oh, dude, I didn't even know he was in this.
Really cool.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I feel like he was like the most. I don't know. He had a presence for sure in this movie. Like he always does, but like he just to turn it into this weird side character, like couple scene dude, like have that much of a impact. I thought he was dope.
Yeah. That does remind me, just because he's in a scene that this happens, another nitpicky, it's definitely nitpicky, but it's annoying thing to me where like it's like every time that they had to have someone outside of Oscar Isaac's camp come he like every time that happens, they had to have the one person being a little bit reckless coming up to a king or whatever the hell he was. And then like all the guards are like they pop up their knives to him and they're like, stay away from our emperor or whatever he was. And then the guy that they tell that to, or no, sorry, Oscar Isaac after that always had to, it was like,
okay.
I'm sorry. It's like they had to have all the people around him show how loyal they are. Like, I'm loyal. And then they had to have every time Oscar Isaac be like, I'm naive and trusting. Back away. They're fine. Like it's like I think that only happens.
I really get that. Yeah, it happens like twice, but two times was too much.
Yeah, definitely. I was fine with the Javier Bardem one.
Yeah,
but then the girl one after that, I was like, we get it.
Yeah. And it's kind of dumb because they're so protective over him during the day, but at night they just they have like two guards outside.
Yeah. Oh man, but that's just a nitpicky thing. I think that's a lot of what I feel like I felt about the movie. I love, like I said, I love the visuals, like that scene where at the very end where that person, which I didn't even realize it, Jared had to tell me, like that person's actually riding a worm at the end of the movie. I thought they were on something and the worm was circling around them or something. I don't know what I thought. But oh man, oh my gosh, looks so cool.
Yeah.
And whoever Denis Villeneuve just needs to do Star Wars. Like he just
everything. He does. Like, that would be a cool.
That would be very
project.
cool.
Like all the ships, whenever him and his mom maybe get in that ship or something, that helicopter, and they go up, and you can tell it's practical and all that stuff. But I'm like, this just seems way more. What's the word? Like just larger than life than Star Wars. Like at least what we've got of Star Wars. Like I feel like this world just feels more believable, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah,
'Cause
not
it's
just
so-
5 people versus the Emperor and then nothing else.
Yeah.
really is.
And they're traveling to planets, and it feels that way. Whereas
Yeah.
Star Wars doesn't really. I think because Star Wars is more popcorny, it's supposed to, get to the adventure. Whereas this is more, we're gonna live with these characters and what they're going through. So
He needs to do Knights of the Old Republic.
Ooh.
Yes.
That'd be cool.